Technology changes quickly, and keeping up can present many problems, especially for older adults who didn't grow up in a digital world. From virtual doctor visits to smart driving cars, technology is changing our world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this month's edition of Rural America Live with AARP. I'm Marlon Bowling. Thanks for joining us. Technology can be confusing, scary, and expensive. Now, if you have an overwhelming fear of new technology, you're not alone. It's something called technophobia, and older adults are especially prone to it because they didn't grow up with email or cell phones and the internet. Well, to help you get over the fear of using technology and learn some tricks on how to use it, our friends from AARP have brought along their tech expert to answer all your questions. Here's a question of the month. What makes you frustrated with technology? Sounds like a good question. We're giving away a cooler to 5 random lucky on-air callers. So pick up the phone. You can give us a call toll free at 877-283-7570. And you don't need to be a member of AARP or over 50 to win. And as a reminder, you can win only once each calendar year. Now, we want to let those who are winners tonight know that AARP will call you back using the number that you called from. It won't be tonight, but they will give you a call in the next few days to confirm your mailing address. Now, if you're a past winner and you have not received your cooler, be sure to return their call and provide a shipping address, and AARP will pay all the shipping costs. Our phone lines are now open, so you can give us a call toll free, as I mentioned, at 877-283-7570. That's 877-283-7570. And join the conversation. We are ready to take your call right now. I want to welcome Sean Voskuil, Director for AARP Oklahoma, and Brad Anderson. He is the Director for AARP Iowa. And later in the show, AARP's top tech expert, Ed Begg, will join us to answer all your tech questions. Well, I'm sure there are lots of folks who are ready to share all their tech frustrations with us tonight. And gentlemen, I am sure you've been fielding a bunch of frustrated callers already, or people in person that are kind of frustrated with all the new gadgets and technology around.
I think it's overwhelming for so many people. It seems like there's an app for everything.
Yeah.
And it's determining, what's safe out there for me to use. How do I use it? And I think with the billions of dollars that our states will be receiving to build out the infrastructure for high-speed internet, we've also got to think about, once we have it, how are we going to teach people how to use those devices?
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunities, and AARP can help.
Well, there's such a steep learning curve to some of this stuff. I mean, it can be overwhelming when you first see something, you see all the buttons and directions on it. It's like, whoa, the older people have a hard time adjusting to that. And what about you, Brad?
Yeah, and I tell you, one of the most popular classes that we offer in AARP Iowa are tech-related classes.
Really?
And so they always sell out. So whether it's virtual or in person. And it starts everything from how to use your smart television to how to use your iPhone, how to text your grandchildren a photograph. So, clearly, as evidence of how frustrating this is for people, just look at our class sign-up sheet, and you'll see that there's some real frustration out there, but hopefully we'll be able to offer some practical advice here tonight.
And the one-on-one help, I think, is what really people help. How do I turn this on? What's the next step? And I think the one-on-one with in-person classes have been really successful.
Yeah,
I've seen it firsthand several times, and it used to be I ate that stuff up. And
I know.
Now I'm kind of getting that way myself. Well, a recent AARP survey on technology and the 50-plus group found that many older adults have embraced technology like iPads and tablets because, well, it's easier to stay connected. But there were concerns around other areas. Sean, I wondered what else that survey revealed to you.
Well, I think we've learned a lot from the pandemic, and whether you were ready to embrace technology, many of us had to. And so there were some really positive things that showed, but some concerns as well. We know that 41% of folks say tech helps them lead a healthy life. And maybe it's virtual health, telehealth that's really important, so they see that help. 74% want new technology to work seamlessly with other technology that they already have. That's really important. 57% say they rely on technology to connect with others, especially family members. And we know that's a number one we hear about, and connecting with family and loved ones. And the last one, they really prefer to learn how to use technology from those they trust, like family. So they want to make sure that they're in a safe environment learning that technology where they cannot be frauded or scammed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Brad, what are some of the issues that some of the older generation are experiencing and causing all this frustration with the new technology? It actually can be a scary event for them, you know?
It really can. And honestly, I mean, tech frustrates everybody, right? No matter what age you are. For me, I will tell you, anytime I'm asked for my username and password, I break out in a cold sweat. So
really,
I've got a real source of anxiety.
Some more makeup on.
Get some more powder on my head. But it's frustrating. And so one of the things that I'm curious from our listeners today is, what is it with you that really frustrates you and makes you anxious about technology? So, for example, are there Zoom calls that you're anxious about? Is it scheduling appointments online? Is it getting a new cell phone? So there are a lot of reasons for this anxiety, obviously. Number one is maybe it's unfamiliar. So with my dad, for example, I bought him a smartwatch. He hated it at first. Now he can't live without it, right? So maybe it's unfamiliar. Secondly is maybe it's overwhelming, you know, and sometimes new tech can be overwhelming and requires a lot of education. This is why I don't play video games with my son, by the way. I don't know how any of them work. And the third one could be a real logistical issue, right? Maybe you struggle with vision or hearing issues, so practically there is a barrier to that technology. So tonight, we have with us one of the top tech reporters in the entire country. This is the person who literally wrote the iPhone for Dummies textbook. So if you have a question out there about technology, I encourage you to call in, or a frustration, and talk to Ed about it, and maybe you'll get that question answered online tonight.
Yeah, I look forward to having him come on in the next segment, and we'll chat about all that. So from what I understand, you have learned that the frustration with new technology, it can actually lead to health problems, can't it? So is it true that maybe you need to kind of adjust to it in smaller bites? I wondered what you thought about that concept.
You know, I think you've got to level that out. Are you really concerned you get that much anxiety using technology? And maybe you need to get that help with one-on-one. You know, how to start that, go to that class. But think about the benefits of telehealth too. During the pandemic, telehealth boomed, whether you're comfortable or not. We're working with some local libraries in Oklahoma, putting actual telehealth boxes where people can go to the local library and do a telehealth visit. And
really?
Yeah, it's great. So there's opportunities there I think are going to be will outweigh the concerns with it, because, you know, in the rural areas we have trouble finding specialists and driving distances to see that doctor. But if you're able to go to that local library and have a private health, kind of a telehealth box where you can have that one-on-one conversation, while it's not going to, you know, you still need to see your doctors for certain things, but think about some of that benefits of telehealth for folks in rural areas.
How about you, Brad? What kind of experience have you had in that regard about maybe causing health issues, just the fear of technology?
Well, and I will tell you, technology has been a game changer when it comes to older Americans in healthcare. So, for example, we did a recent survey. 42% of older Americans now rely on technology to make them healthier. 10 years ago, that number would have been in single digits, right? So it could be a smartwatch that monitors your heart rate.
Oh, yeah.
It could be another app. It could be a website. So, and the other thing that's really important is that social connectivity, because we know that social isolation is the equivalent of smoking 7 to 10 cigarettes a day. I mean, it's incredibly unhealthy. And so when you can connect with, for example, FaceTime, right? And you can see someone one-on-one. This was especially true during the pandemic. It's a game changer. So where we've come over the last decade is monumental. But Our survey also showed people still have a lot of questions about technology and they need to be educated. And that's what Ed, our expert, is going to do here tonight.
Well, and you bring up a great point about the pandemic. I mean, I always considered myself maybe a little above average, when it comes to technology. I mean, I had my first computer in 1982, taught myself basic programming, that sort of thing. But yet I had COVID a few years ago, and the doctor had to explain how I could do a telehealth meeting with him. Saved my life, actually. But, I didn't know how they did that. And he said, oh, we're doing it all the time. Yeah. And we did that several times after that. And it was a miracle. I was very impressed with it. So I would encourage everybody, if you can, learn how to do this stuff. It could be a big lifesaver for you. Tell you what, we have a whole lot more to talk about, and we do need to take a little break. But anyway, when we come back, of course, we're going to be talking with AARP's tech guru, and we'll join him, and we'll answer your tech questions as well. Plus, don't forget, we have 5 coolers to give away tonight. We want to hear from you. What about technology frustrates you? Well, give us a call at 877-283-7570. Now, the phone lines are open right now, and we'll be right back.
Your smart speaker can tell you the latest news or remind you to take your medication. These devices can also record everything they hear. How do you protect your privacy when using a smart device? Smart speakers are always listening for their wake word. So each time you call out to your device with Alexa or OK Google, it records what you say. It might also do that when you say something that sounds similar. And once you issue a command, it records that too and saves it in its database. If you want to be sure your smart device isn't picking up sensitive information, check for a physical setting like a button or a switch that stops it from listening. Review your in-app privacy setting to see if recordings are automatically stored and for how long. If you use your smart device to shop or read emails out loud, consider adding a PIN or passcode for an extra layer of protection. For more technology tips, go to aarp.org/tech.
Well, welcome back to Rural America Live with AARP. Well, tackling tech is what we're talking about tonight, and we want you to join the conversation. Well, the phone lines are now open, so give us a call toll free at 877-283-7570. What frustrates you most about technology? Now, we'll give away a cooler to 5 lucky on-air callers tonight. So pick up the phone and give us a call at 877-283-7570. Well, I happen to be here with Sean Voskuil, Director of AARP Oklahoma, and Brad Anderson. He is Director of AARP Iowa, and they have brought with them a true tech guru. Yes, indeed. We have Ed Begg here. He's AARP's tech writer. Welcome to Rural America Live, Ed.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, so give us a little background on your experience.
Well, I have been writing about tech for longer than I want to admit, but I was one of the guys, actually, there were 4 people who got the original iPhone to review 2 weeks ahead of its launch back in 2007, and I was one of them. I was at usatoday.com, and I joke with people, I was never more popular than when people thought I had the iPhone. I literally was I live in a little town in New Jersey, and I was at a town picnic, and people suspected I had the phone, but I was sworn to secrecy. And somebody came up to me and said, "Empty your pockets." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I just walked away. Then when we could finally, I could publish a review of this thing, and people then knew I had it. Everybody wanted to see it and touch it. I wish I had it in high school. I was never been more popular.
So what did you think of it when you saw it?
I gave it a really positive review. In fact, I called it a prodigy at the time. And like many prodigies, it had enormous potential. But it also could have flamed out. We didn't know. There was no guarantee that this thing was going to be successful. And people forget now that the original iPhone did not have an app store. The famous, there's an app for that. That wasn't there in version number 1.
Yeah.
There was no flash camera. There was no front camera, so no selfies. There was only one carrier, AT&T at the time. And there were a bunch of other features that were not there that over the years we've come to take for granted. So now we fast forward all these years later, and the iPhone is probably the most, technologically successful product, certainly in the last certainly in this century, right?
Yeah.
And we're up to iPhone 15 devices, which Apple introduced just last week at their Cupertino, California headquarters. I was out there for that. And it's amazing how far these devices have come all these years later.
You keep thinking that they will have thought of everything every time they come out with a new one, and still they continue to amaze every time a new one comes out.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to the point, the cameras are a little bit better. They do make changes on the margins. If you bought a phone last year or the year before, you probably don't have to run out and buy one of these new iPhones yet. But if your phone is, a few years old, it may have been state of the art 4 or 5 years ago, but now it's beginning, the battery isn't what it was. The camera's good, but not as good as these newer devices. You're a candidate, I guess, for the new ones if you have the budget. You have to point out these are not inexpensive devices.
Yeah. Well, I remember, personal aside, I was actually living and working out in Raleigh, North Carolina at the time, and a good friend of mine got the first one I ever saw.
Right.
And he was explaining to people how he could get email on his phone. And it's like, what? Wait a minute.
I know.
And he actually pulled up a website on there, and I was flabbergasted.
Yeah, the web looked like the web on a computer. And if you remember, we could do this, right? You can pinch and unpinch.
Yeah.
And the screen got bigger, the photos got bigger. And that was like a parlor. Now we take it for granted. Every phone does that now. But back then, this was like, oh my God, did you see what it could do? And, we've come a long way in these past number of years.
And before that, I remember I used to work a lot with government officials, doing interviews with them, that sort of thing. Everybody had a BlackBerry. Remember that?
Yeah, oh sure.
BlackBerries everywhere.
Yep.
And then the iPhone came out and everybody switched.
Yep.
So it was amazing. We have Shirley on the phone with a call, and thank you for calling in, Shirley. What's your question?
My frustration is I frequently have questions that do not fit any of their boxes, and there's no way to convince artificial intelligence that I do have a brain.
That's an interesting take. Who wants to respond to that one?
Well, I'll say,
right.
It's interesting that you bring up artificial intelligence. It's Shirley, right?
Yes.
That seems to be the technology topic du jour, right? Every day you read about AI or artificial intelligence and so-called generative AI. I don't want to get too technical, but generally it means you're generating content based on some text input or sometimes pictures, but generally text right now. And it's things like ChatGPT, and it's remarkable some of the things that you can do with it. Although there's a scary side too, and we have to pay attention to that, whether it's privacy, whether it's the misuse of technology. But I understand where you're coming from. I mean, AI is not the be-all. There's a lot of hype around it. I think it's arguably the biggest technological leap, maybe since the internet. I think you can make the case for that.
I've heard that.
But I understand your frustration.
Interesting stuff. And thanks for the call. I appreciate that very much. We have another caller on the line. We have James calling in from Montana. And James, I appreciate you calling in. By the way, you are a winner of one of the coolers, so congratulations. Make sure that we will be calling you back here soon, and make sure that you respond so you can get that cooler. Tell you what is your frustration for our panel here?
Yes, hello. I keep wondering why all these apps and software applications have to be updated so much. Seems like you just get used to using it, and then there's an update, and then you can't use it anymore. It seems to change. So I keep wondering, why do they have to update? Seems like every week, maybe even every month, they update these apps.
That's a really good question. Now, what they will tell you, what the industry will tell you is updates make them better. It's more secure, it adds features or whatever. Unfortunately, that's, as you've discovered, James, that's not always the case. And in fact, when new versions of the operating systems come out, whether it's Android from the Google side of phones or iOS for iPhones, sometimes when you bring in the new generation, older apps will no longer work. And I've run into this myself. It's funny, a lot of people play this game, Wordle. I don't know if you do. I remember an app that had the same name called Wordle. It was like the board game Boggle. And but not the Wordle we see today. Well, it just stopped working because it was no longer supported by the operating system. So again, in theory, it's trying to make an app better, adding features, more secure in reality, and taking advantage of newer hardware too, better chips and processors and all the sort of innards of the phone. But sometimes older apps no longer work.
To that point, there are times when something like a new update comes out.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm a little odd that way, but a lot of times I don't like to upgrade right away if I have a choice. I want to let them work the bugs out for a little bit. Is that a good thing to do or not?
I think that's a smart thing to do. Now, I don't take my own advice on that. The minute it was available, I went and grabbed it. And I was also playing with the beta version, the testing version before the launch. But it is smart to do that. In fact, just today, Apple came out with version, it's iOS 17, and today they came out with 17.01, which is already a release with bug fixes.
Really?
Yeah, just today.
Oh my
just a few days after the software actually became available. And that's not unusual, And, so there are those of us who can't wait, but I think you're being very prudent in that approach.
Well, just the operating system on my phone. I have gotten burned in the past by upgrading too fast.
Yep.
And I went ahead and did that, and then none of my apps worked. And it blew them all up. And then I had to wait for the new patch to come out to fix the update.
They all didn't work?
It was almost all of them, yeah. I had to get an update for the update, if you will.
Right.
And it came out about 2 days later, but it made it a headache for a while.
Yeah, talk about frustration. That is a big one.
That was a frustration, that's a good point. So we have John calling in from Illinois. Hey, John, thanks for calling in. What's your frustration?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, the question I have, I live in extreme southern Illinois, and there are a lot of areas where we still do not have high-speed internet. To give you an example, there's a small town called Creel Springs that has a mini mart and a post office, and a lot of times in the mornings, there may be a line of 8 or 10 people waiting to check out because everybody now uses a debit or credit card, and they don't have high-speed internet. So we all stand up there while the dial-up goes and wait.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my question is, when the local carrier for my phone, my iPhone, upgraded with a lot of pomp and circumstance to the 5G network, my cell phone would not even work as well as it did before the upgrade in a lot of the areas that I travel. And I had a person tell me to go under the cellular data options tab, go down to the voice and data tab, and unclick the 5G network, get off of that thing, and jump back onto the LTE highway. And I guess my question is, I did that. I've never switched back to the 5G, and my phone works like it did before. So what am I missing out on 5G? Should I switch my phone back? I mean, I don't really even understand what I did, but it worked.
That's intriguing.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think of that, Ed?
Well, I'm glad it works now. I think you hit on something. First of all, 5G, talk about hype. I mean, there was enormous hype for 5G long before it actually arrived, and commercials by all the major carriers. Basically, you're talking about infrastructure here that has to be built out. And clearly, they didn't get to you and other parts of the country. And that's a shame because it puts you in that very difficult position. You might want to try it again at some point. How long ago did you switch it? You still there?
Oh, John's gone, I guess.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask how long. Yeah, I was going to ask him how long ago he switched it because it's possible that now it's better because it sounded like he didn't want to go back, and I understand that. But it's like anything else. They have to build out the infrastructure.
Yeah. But the help may be on the way.
Yeah.
I mean, the billions of dollars that are going in every state to build out that infrastructure for high-speed internet is there. And I would encourage them to contact their broadband office that's been created to see that map, to make sure that that community is going to get that infrastructure built out. And if you don't, talk to your lawmakers to make sure lobby to make sure that they are seeming it, because we're talking about billions of dollars that are going to state. I think to me, it's a generational investment in high-speed internet that we may not see again. So make sure you're covered.
Well, and one other plug I'd like to make is the Affordability Connect program and the ACP program, because there are a lot of places in rural America where you have broadband, but you can't afford it. And so if your income is such, you can actually qualify for very low-cost broadband, high-speed internet if you go to just Google Affordability Connect program, and you'll find how to fill out the application. It's very easy, and it can save people in rural America a lot of money by doing so.
Yeah, you'll basically get $30 a month, and actually, if you're in a tribal land, it's up to $75.
And just to add on to that a little bit, there are some communities, and like you say, there's a lot of federal money being offered to upgrade all the systems. But I actually live in a situation like that where we're kind of falling through the cracks, if you will. Yeah, we have some, I call it medium speed internet, but they brought in fiber internet to all the surrounding areas. But because I live inside a small town city limit, that's classified outside of what qualified for rural development, and everybody in the country within a half mile of me has fiber, and I can't get it.
Yeah.
And it won't be for 2 years yet.
Oh, gosh.
So it is frustrating, I understand. Tell you what, here is that toll-free phone number if you want to jot it down, 877-283-7570, and you can call in too, and don't forget we're giving away 5 coolers tonight, so you might qualify for one of them. 877-283-7570 is the number, and join the conversation. Let us know what frustrates you about new technology. We have Pete calling in from Texas. Pete, thanks for your call, and by the way, you are a winner of one of the coolers, so congratulations. So tell us, what frustrates you about technology?
Well, I hope that I don't have so much of a frustration, maybe more questions for you. First, let me kind of go backwards and say I really love Rfd-Tv. It's my go-to channel now.
Thank you.
First question would be, so many things when you're online looking around direct you to Facebook, or what was Twitter, X, I guess now.
Yeah.
Sometimes TikTok, often YouTube. Are you generally safe going to these sites as far as people being able to get into your phone and stealing identity theft, what have you? Second question would then be, so many of these sites, whether you want to see an article or something, they want you to put a cookie, and they'll give you an option, accept cookies or manage cookies. Am I safe accepting these cookie things? What are they? And I know nothing about managing them, so am I safe just accepting them as they present them to me? And lastly, I am an Apple kind of guy. I have an iPhone and I have an iPad, and I love them. But when I first started using them, it was my impression, or maybe it's a myth, and maybe you can help me with that. I always understood that Apple was nearly uncorruptible, or at least as far as securing your data, et cetera. Is that a myth, or is that fairly true, as long as you keep up with the iOS updates, et cetera?
There you go, Ed. So security.
Yeah, security. That's traditionally been true, which is not to suggest that it's bulletproof, because nothing out there, unfortunately, is bulletproof. Apple did have a reputation through the years, certainly with the Mac computers, of being very secure. Not 100%, nothing's 100%. It's generally been true. Now, having said that, I just mentioned the bug fixes in the new iOS, which is just out a few days ago. I don't know if any of those fixes are security related, but you will see Apple, along with their counterparts at Google and Microsoft and elsewhere, come out with updates that fix security issues. So that's number one. I think generally in the past, and probably for the most part, Apple is pretty safe, pretty secure, but that doesn't mean you should kind of let your guard down and assume if something looks fishy that, maybe you should think twice before you certainly update something. Now, you were asking, I guess, about Facebook.
Cookies?
Cookies, yes. So cookies are it's not the old Nabisco chocolate chip cookies.
I'm getting hungry.
They're actually small computer files that will be loaded onto your phone and computer that are supposed to make the website your visit operate more smoothly, work better. Sometimes it kind of, when you come back to a site, it knows it's you, and the last time you were here, you did this, and you may want to do it again or start from there. That's kind of the plus side of cookies. And I would say that most of them are benign. But again, cookies can introduce some security issues. And so you have to be very careful. Kind of use your common sense, use your radar. If you don't think the company you're dealing with is reputable, don't accept the cookies. And if you have accepted a cookie, you can always go into your settings and remove them. Oh. So that you can do that and dig into settings. There
are some programs that will kind of clean them out for you too.
There are, but you could do it. You could do it within the browser software of your devices.
Does that give it more access to your data too and your preferences, and so it's
it can, and again, it's a double-edged sword. Maybe you want that because maybe every time you visit a site, if you're coming and it doesn't know anything about you, you have to start from scratch. So again, it's a balance. It's a balance.
He was asking. I think it was Pete, right, who we just talked to. So he was asking about going to Facebook and going to X and going to these websites. They tend to be reliable, the sites that he listed. The one caution I would make is if you are going to these sites and searching for answers like security software and that kind of thing, one thing we've seen a lot of in Iowa is then you call a phone number and then you start talking to someone and they start asking you to pay for that service in gift cards. Yeah. And I will tell you, that is a scam.
Yeah.
Always a scam. So never pay for a technology service to someone you call with gift cards because it's inevitably a scam and you won't get that money back.
And you should not ever surrender any personal information. If you're asked for your social security number, for your phone number, for your credit card number, that's, no.
Right.
Yeah.
It's important to remember, too, that if there are breaches in security, a lot of times they are through the app, not, it wouldn't be Apple's fault. I mean, they host so you can download apps, but it's the writing of the app that opens up the security loophole, right?
It can, although they have pretty good guardrails in place to even get in the App Store. Again, I don't want to say, bad stuff can't get through, because it can, but generally speaking, they have pretty good guardrails about blocking suspect apps. Just one more thing. I recently had my Instagram account cloned. And it was kind of scary, In fact, my daughter spotted it and said, I don't think this is you, but my pictures were there, so it can happen even to somebody like me.
So I've had that happen to a number of friends and relatives. What do you do then?
Well, there's a way to report the issue to Instagram or in this Meta, which is their parent company. It's also the parent company of Facebook. Last time I looked at it, however, they didn't remove that site, so I have to get on them. But it can happen to anybody. A lot of times what I find is somebody will on Facebook give me a friend request, and I'll say, wait a minute, I think I'm already a friend with that person.
Right.
And then I will go and check, and sure enough I am, and then it's pretty clear that their account got hacked.
Right.
So
that's a good giveaway.
Yeah.
Again, just a reminder, if you would like to join the conversation tonight, and this is a hot topic about frustration with new technology, you can call us toll free. There's a number, it's 877-283-7570, and you can be a part of the conversation as well.
Or if they have a tech tip.
What's
that? If they have a tech tip.
Sure. Oh, yeah, we'll take that, too.
We can all learn from what's your technology that you give to.
It's a two-way conversation here tonight. We do have Melinda calling in from Florida. So, Melinda, thank you for calling in. And what's your frustration?
Well, I've been using a computer for a while. I'm 82 years old. And I wanted to get back into it more deeply after some recent illnesses. So I had my computer upgraded and more space added and that kind of thing, because the repairman said that, it was still in good condition otherwise. So I did that, but it seems like it changed everything. And so I'm just frustrated by the fact that, I have nobody to call or to go to unless I pay them, and money's tight. So I wonder why there aren't more local groups that meet, like at community centers or something. I've not heard of any around here that people could go to get some of the questions answered.
That's a good idea. What do you think?
Yeah, it's absolutely a good idea. And I would say that, there are meetup groups and things like that in a lot of communities. You said you were in Texas? I don't know. Florida, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know where in Florida you are. And I'm certainly not an expert on where all these places are. But have you tried just the basic internet search to see if there are any organizations that will provide some support for free?
Oh, I think she's
gone.
We have seniorplanet.org. And you may check with the Aarp office in Florida. They may have some classes that they're connecting with there as well. But seniorplanet.org has great information for live online classes, but you can also check if there's some in-person classes. And they've got a hotline phone number that you can call with assistance as well. So seniorplanet.org are in a lot of states, and your local Aarp office could probably help you, connect you.
Awesome.
Yeah, and one thing I would add to that too is Senior Planet is an excellent program, and all the state offices should have some access to Senior Planet. Another resource could be your public libraries, and I know at least in Iowa, we have a lot of tech classes, in-person tech classes at our public libraries. And, you could potentially bring your computer because you're going to have some tech-savvy person there teaching the class. And I think that could help Melinda out a little bit.
And think about when we talked about the infrastructure, all the billions of dollars that are coming down to states to build it out. But there's also money for their digital opportunities. And in our state, we're looking at making sure we have money for digital navigators, which will help people with one-on-one consultation and doing it in local libraries. What a great place. And we've done a pilot in our state. So there may be some opportunities coming if they're not in your local community right yet.
All right. Well, we do have to take a short break, but we still have a couple of coolers to give away. So give us a call at 877-283-7570 and join in the conversation. We'll be right back.
Tech support cons typically start in one of two ways: an unsolicited phone call or a pop-up warning on your computer or device. These scammers pretend to be connected with a brand name like Microsoft, Apple, or McAfee and say that there's a problem or virus on your computer that needs to be fixed. But those companies won't contact you out of the blue about your computer. The con artist will request remote access to your device in order to run phony diagnostic tests. Don't engage with this type of request. If you do, they will pretend to have found a virus that will damage your computer and pressure you to pay hundreds of dollars for repairs you don't need, asking for a credit card number or requesting payment by gift card or money transfer. Your best plan of action is to shut down your device and don't respond. If you think something may be wrong with your computer, turn to a company you trust and have it checked out. For more scam prevention tips, go to aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork.
Great advice. Well, thanks for joining us. We're talking about technology and frustrations for the older generations tonight, and we still have a couple of coolers to give away, so let's go straight to the phone lines. We have Martin calling in from Minnesota. Martin, thank you for calling in. I appreciate that. And by the way, you are a winner of one of the coolers, so congratulations. What are you frustrated with on technology?
Well, you covered quite a bit of it, but I had problems with all my emails coming in and not knowing always. Some of them look like they're so legitimate, and I understand about HTTPS and so on. I've been on computers for a long time, but I still got burned and got viruses. And that's half I didn't actually get the tour. The second half is when you get emails and you get these scammers or these ones that give you over and over and over telling you that do this, do this, do that. And how can you get rid of these people that are bombarding you on your email?
Well, Ed, what do you think on that?
Yeah, it's a real problem. Unfortunately, there's this thing called phishing, which is out that's not phishing with an F, P-H-I-S-I-N-G, if I got that right. And basically what it is you'll get an email that looks authentic. It might have a company logo. It really looks pretty good.
Right.
But there's still ways you can tell that this thing is probably not real. They may not address you, instead of saying, Dear John Smith, it might say Dear John Doe or, Dear Customer. There may be grammatical errors in there, misspellings, things like that. Those are clues that this thing is probably not legit. Now, the sad part is that the scammers know this too, and they're getting better at it through, various tricks. I think you have to have your radar up. You have to sort of say, if they're asking me for money, if they're asking me for personal information, take a pause. If you think it's from your bank, don't deal with it in the email. Call your bank. So there are things you can do, but it's a problem. And unfortunately, the scammers are getting better at scamming you. So you really have to have your guard up.
That would be what you call spoofing, is that right?
Yeah, phishing, yeah, but yes, there's various things that it's called. But yes, you pretend to be somebody that you're not. And artificial intelligence, which you talked about earlier, the downside of it is it might make some of that easier to fake stuff. You can fake voices, you can fake pictures, but it's not all bad either. We can talk about some voice cloning that's actually for a positive reason.
Yeah.
And there are a couple other tips too, because this is a really, really important question when it comes to email. And I noticed he was saying that he got a virus on his computer.
Yeah.
How that typically happens is if you click on a link or if you click on an attachment. So really be cautious about clicking on a link or clicking on an attachment. And also one other tip, and Ed, you've probably heard this too, is really take a look at the email address on where it's from, and make sure that if it's from Microsoft, but it says Microsoft.xo whatever, then it's not Microsoft. So really great question, and from my neighbor there in Minnesota, and appreciated the call.
And the same advice goes for text too. Don't click on links on a text unless you're really sure that it's safe.
Just to add to your point, I had some just a few days ago that it looked totally legitimate, and it was addressed to me on my personal email address. But I noticed up in the header, I always like to look at the details. I dropped that down, and it had me and a whole bunch of other email addresses that were real similar to mine. So you knew it was a group email, and they were just blasting it out to everybody that had like maybe the first 5 letters of my email address. Just delete it.
It's like dropping a stick of dynamite when you're fishing. Just blowing everybody up and seeing what comes up.
So I knew they weren't talking to just me anyway. We have another phone call on the line. And again, just a reminder, we have a cooler to give away yet. 877-283-7570 is the number. We have Jerry calling in from Connecticut. Hey, Jerry, thanks for calling in tonight. I appreciate that. What are you frustrated about?
Oh, I'm frustrated about. I changed my iPhone. It's about 2.5 years ago, and I could not find my email address. Not my email address. I'm 91. You got to bear with me.
Your
my
password?
Code, for my email.
Yeah.
My code.
Passwords.
Yeah. So you've not been able to get into the phone?
Right. Once I did that, I lost all my emails. I had all kinds of contacts, and I cannot get that to work again because I cannot find my original code to get into my email.
What do you think?
Let me ask you. Excuse me. Let me ask you a question. You said it's an iPhone. Do you know if you back up onto iCloud, which is Apple's kind of cloud service? Because if you have your data in iCloud, you should be able to retrieve it even by starting from scratch and creating a new username and password, as long as you know that you can get to iCloud. The frustrating part here is that if you don't remember that username and password for iCloud, that's unfortunately a difficult situation.
Sometimes it helps to, if you do have a password like that, just write it down and put it in your drawer or something so you know where you can find it later on for your own reference, just so you don't forget anyway. Unimportant stuff like that. Thanks for the call. I appreciate that. We have Gary calling in from Iowa right now. And Gary, you happen to be a winner of a cooler tonight too. Thanks for calling in. What are you frustrated about on technology? Gary, are you there?
Yes.
All right. What are you frustrated about?
Okay. I have an iPhone. I have an Android.
Okay.
Galaxy. I think it's a Galaxy 10. And all the rest of my family has iPhones. So they're kind of wanted me to switch over, but I'm afraid I'm going to lose my cell phone numbers that I have stored because I have a lot of them with a business, and maybe my pictures. But they thought that if I got an iPhone, the wristwatch part of it would be a savior, maybe in my age, in my health.
Yeah, excuse me. Do you, again, I'll mention what I just mentioned before. Do you back up anything onto the cloud service, whether, Google, you mentioned you have Android. Google certainly has cloud services, and of course Apple does, and there are a bunch of them out there. So that when you switch, you can bring in your photos and your data from the web. One thing I might recommend to you, if you are interested in going to the iPhone, I don't know if there's an Apple store near you, but they will actually help you. I mean, they would love to get you to switch from Android. And they will do all they can to help you. And I would just go into the store if you do have one reasonably close to you and explain what you just explained to us. I have all this data, I don't want to lose it. And they will help you. They will do a lot of hand-holding on that. And so that's what I would recommend.
Is the cloud service cost? Is that
there is a cost. There's a basic free tier, which, depending upon how many photos or videos you have, may or may not be enough. Mm-hmm. And then you could pay more for more storage.
I think it's at 99 cents. I get charged every month.
Yeah, I know. I go through that really fast. So Apple just upped its storage options. You have to pay for it, but there's some other options.
There's an
now.
app for that, but there's a charge for that.
Well, again, Gary, just a reminder, you are the winner of one of the coolers. So thanks again for your call. I appreciate that a lot. We have Anita on the phone from Colorado, and Anita, you're also a winner of a cooler tonight. So thank you for calling in. Well, you'll be hearing back from us here before too long, in a day or two. Anyway, what is your comment or question for the panel tonight? What are you frustrated about?
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Yeah.
I was calling to say, along the lines of viruses, when you get a virus, what are my options? Do I have to go to a new phone?
Not necessarily.
Is that my only option to clean that up?
Not necessarily, no. There's software that may clean it up. Certainly there are services that will, you do have to pay money that might help you clean it up. But there are ways to, depending upon what it is, to eliminate viruses. It's a frustrating thing, though, and there is some pain involved, but you can get rid of it.
Does she contact her provider if it's Apple? Okay.
Absolutely. I would contact, I don't know who your provider is, whether it's AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, or somebody else. They should be able to help you, or Apple or Google or Samsung, whatever phone you have should be able to help you.
And Ed, what do you think about just taking your computer into a local repair shop if you get a virus? I know, my parents would do that from time to time. Is that something that you would recommend, or is that something that is kind of a last resort?
Depends on how much they're going to charge you, and honestly, if you think they're reputable or not. I don't want to suggest that just because it's some small outfit in a small town that they don't know what they're doing. Go in and ask them what's involved here. What's the cost going to be, and so on. I don't see anything wrong with doing that.
Is the Geek Squad still around?
I believe. They
Yeah.
are part of Best Buy. They're part of Best Buy.
Yeah.
Now, that's not free.
Right.
But, sometimes as a last resort, you have to go that
Clean
route.
that up.
Yeah.
Maybe
yeah.
cheaper than buying a new device.
Yeah.
I really like that idea offered up earlier on the program, though, about having maybe a local group, maybe in a community center or something like that. If someone has some expertise
I think
to
there's
share
a
with the others
great
and help them
opportunity
out
for,
as a volunteer or
for
something.
digital navigators, and we've done some
Yeah.
tablet distribution events in Oklahoma, and we would have one-on-one support. This is how you turn the device on. We talked about, here's the basic things you need to know, but we also went through security. Here's the things you need to watch out for as well. So again, I think with the money that's available that's dropping down, there'll be more opportunities for us to do digital navigators and the one-on-one help that people need.
Well, before we wrap up the show, Ed, I want to start with you. If there's one thing you want to leave everybody with tonight, what would it be? What's the most important point?
Well, there's probably a lot of important points. I was going to bring up real quick, because we've been talking about frustrations, and one thing Apple did last week with the new iPhones is change the connector on the phone. It's been the Lightning connector, that you plug into your phone since 2014.
Right.
They're now going to USB-C, which is an industry standard. The good news is that same charging cable you have can charge your computer. If you have an Android as well, it probably can charge that, the iPhone. That's the good news. The bad news is all those cords and cables that you have around may not work anymore. So that's short-term pain for long-term gain. How's that? How's that?
And then you had a cautionary note about AI that everybody's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's, technology is only as good as the people behind it, and the people, AI is an enormous topic. We could spend the whole hour on AI. And basically the way it works is it's pulling all this data off the internet. Guess what? Some of that data is good stuff, some of it's not. And you don't necessarily know at this point what's good. So I would say play with AI, play around with it, but be cautious. Fact check everything it tells you, but have some fun with it too.
All right, Sean, what about you? Any last thoughts?
Well, again, we've said it a few times. Seniorplanet.org is a great location for you to get online assistance and perhaps one-on-one assistance. They've got videos, they've got online classes to take. Try that. Brad mentioned the Affordable Connectivity Program if you're looking to find cheaper access to internet. Go to affordableconnectivity.gov for signing up.
Good idea. How about you, Brad? What do you think?
Well, I'm going to plug AARP, if I may be so bold. So I think if there are older Americans out there that want to read some of the terrific articles that Ed has written, go to aarp.org/tech. And you will see there are articles about, which apps can save you a bunch of money. There are terrific articles about how to protect yourself from AI. So we are lucky at AARP to have one of the top technology reporters in the country as part of our team. And so go to aarp.org/tech to learn a lot about technology.
Awesome. Awesome stuff. Well, I'm so glad you guys could make it in. This has been a great topic and very valuable. That's going to do it for tonight. I do want you to join us on October 19th. That's when we'll help you navigate the complex world of Medicare and Social Security benefits. That ought to be a good one. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us on Rural America Live, and good night from Rural America's most important network.